We'll now move on to Indigenous relations. So I call up Dennis Fraser is on the line.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you see my presentation?
I think we have to adjust it. Jay can direct you there a little bit.
Hi, Dennis. We're seeing slideshow view, not the full. And now we're seeing the black screen. It looks like you're sharing the screen that would pop up right on your computer. Do you want us to share it from inside the chamber? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, please, because it's showing up on my screen here, so I'm not sure.
No problem.
Let me try here one more time. How's that?
Hi, Dennis. Why don't you let us share from inside the screen so that we can get the full maximized view?
Okay, that's what's showing up on my screen here.
Okay, if you could stop sharing, and then I'll have Heather from inside the chamber start to share from inside. Dennis, your slideshow is being streamed, and you're ready to go whenever you are.
Okay, thank you. Good day, Mayor and Council. My name is Dennis Fraser, and I am the Director of the Indigenous and Rural Relations Department, or IRR. I am pleased to present our proposed 2022 operating budget. Slide 2. Department initiatives are facilitated by three main functions within the IRR operating budget. Number 1, Indigenous and Rural Relations. Number 2, Rural Relations. And number 3, Administration. For 2022, we are proposing a total operating budget of approximately $3.4 million. Next slide, please. I'm not sure if you've got the slide up there. My screen is freezing up.
We have a bit, looks like a snowstorm.
Yeah.
But we're just trying to get that straight here.
It's sunny here now, Zach.
It looks like we have the presentation up. Thank you so much, Linnea. I appreciate it. It looks like we're having some difficulty inside the chamber with the screen share.
Okay, I'm on slide 2 then. IRR is focused on collaboration and meaningful dialogue with Indigenous and rural partners. This includes 6 First Nations, 6 Métis communities, and various organizations throughout the region. Building and strengthening relationships is central to much of the work that we do. With a priority to advance reconciliation in Wood Buffalo, the department engages internally and externally to respond to the calls to action identified by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action, and those that have been adopted by the municipality. Slide 3. The proposed IRR 2020 operating budget represents a net increase of $248,000. Next. The Indigenous Relations Branch. Next. Under the direction of Manager Janine Cruz, the Indigenous Relations Branch works to build relationships founded on mutual respect to advance reconciliation in Wood Buffalo. This branch oversees the municipal response to the TRC's calls to action and provides research, advice, and engagement support to internal departments and external partners and stakeholders. The team works directly with First Nations, Métis, and rural partners and communities to coordinate the municipality's participation in Indigenous-led initiatives. They also facilitate and lead municipal engagement on various regional projects. A total operating budget of approximately $1.8 million is being proposed for this branch. This is a net increase of approximately $337,000, which is due primarily to salaries, wages, and benefits, as well as contracted and general services. Contracted and general services has increased approximately $177,000 to support and further develop initiatives such as the Elders and Residents Program, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Indigenous Peoples Day and History Month, the Reconciliation Challenge, and the United Nations International Decade of Indigenous Languages. Materials, goods, supplies, and utilities has also increased by $50,000 to support these initiatives and related activities. The Rural Relations Branch. Under the direction of Supervisor Coralie Samarodin, the Rural Relations Branch provides ongoing opportunities for engagement and inclusion in the rural communities to the south of the urban service area. This branch serves as a single point of contact, providing residents with access to municipal services through designated contact offices in Anzac, Conklin, and Janvier. In addition, the team facilitates resident participation in cultural and social events in several of the rural communities. This branch is proposing a total decrease to its 2022 operating budget of approximately $140,000. While there's an increase to goods, material goods, and supplies, the overall decrease is based on a reduction in salaries, wages, and benefits due to the alignment of staffing levels. The Administration Branch. Under my direction, the Administration Branch of IRR oversees and supports daily operations and guides the framework for achieving the departmental goals. IRR administration provides strategic direction and oversight to the CEO and other municipal departments to ensure the cultural, historical, and significance of this region is recognized and forms an essential part of our corporate framework. Achieving the outcomes identified in the RMWB TRC report is a priority as the department works to build and support relationships with Indigenous communities and partners. Recognizing the importance of collaborative relationship building, IRR facilitates meaningful dialogue, engagement between the municipality, Indigenous, federal, and provincial governments, service providers, community partners, and residents. Administration is requesting a proposed 2020 operating budget of approximately $507,000. The increase in the administration budget supports initiatives related to the implementation of the municipal TRC report and its recommendations. These initiatives will drive progress and support positive change for improved relationships and reconciliation efforts in Wood Buffalo. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. Do we have any questions from council? Councilor Cardinal?
Thanks for your presentation, Dennis. I got a couple questions, actually. I was wondering, do we have any monies set aside for missing and murdered Indigenous women's program?
Yes, we do. In my budget this year, I have allotted $1,000 for the missing and murdered, and that primarily goes to the red dress postcards and printout of same.
Okay. I was just thinking, Jade, is it okay if I propose a budget for this year for the missing and murdered Indigenous women's, and I can take questions after that? Can I do that now?
Councilor Cardinal, I'll come back to it after all the councils ask questions. We can come back to the motions at the end there. Will that be okay?
guys are cutting out over there.
Oh, that's what I thought. Yeah, no, we'll come back to motions after we finish questions through council. And I can go back and call to you after the questions are asked there. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Cardinal. Do you have any other questions?
No, just that, did you say that was $1,000, Dennis?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Cardinal. Councilor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thank you for the presentation, Dennis. I would like to know what was the decrease in staffing levels in the rural offices?
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, we did not have a decrease in staffing levels. Our staffing levels remain the same.
Okay, it just says salary, wages, and benefits decreased to reflect changes in staffing levels in rural offices. It's in your presentation.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Stroud, two reasons. One is we've had a position out in one of the communities that we haven't filled yet. Because of COVID, this position primarily travels throughout the southern areas. And so that has not been filled yet up until we can get up and running again. And secondly, with our contact offices closed for the last couple of years, there has been some savings there in regards to the casual staff.
Right, that I can understand then. When is
traditionally, through the chair to Councillor Stroud, traditionally the casual staff out in these communities, they filled in for when the regular staff were on holidays, sick, that type of thing. So we didn't need that over the last couple of years now.
Right. Okay, and I believe you're probably following in the rural and in the urban the same protocol in calling staff back to the offices. So I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, that makes sense, Dennis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Stroud. Councilor Benjoko?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Thank you for the presentation. My question is regarding the Indigenous relations and talking of truth and reconciliation. I just need you to educate all on how you are staying connected to these communities. Say, for instance, Fort McKay, Fort Chipewyan, how you are engaging them, and especially how you involve and carry along the communities and councillors from this area. Thank you. I hope, I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, in regards to the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation, that's a document that's been about 4 years in the making. And last fall, we brought forward a collaborative pathway forward where we spoke of, there's 94 calls to action. And we've recognized through our partners internally, externally, initially we went with 14 that the municipality could influence, move forward or do something about, and we've since added to that. So we're up to 29 calls to action. And there is a report, it's our path forward. And it's on the website, and it's a very informative document, and it's one that that's how we chart our way forward. Everything that we do has to align with the calls to action and what we're going to do in the next coming year.
Thank you for the answer through the chair. I don't think I quite got the answer that or maybe you didn't understand my question. My question is how you are involving and engaging the communities, like Fort McKay, like Fort Chipewyan, on how you are carrying them along, because the document is not what I'm talking about. What are the active things that are being done to engage, and in what way are you engaging the communities? And maybe even the councillors here can answer the questions, but I just needed to hear more. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question. Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, we have one advisor in every community, all the way from Smith's Landing up to Fort Chipewyan, Fort Mackay, in the urban service area here, as well as Anzac and South. And we also have our rural hamlets. So we are in constant contact with our partners out there, and as well as my level too. I meet periodically with the chiefs, different leaders, and that type of thing. And as we move forward with our reporting for next fall, we're going to have a more robust engagement strategy with our Indigenous partners and communities.
Thank you.
Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. And Dennis, I just want to know, I know previously that you had some elders programming in Jonvier. Is that going to continue this year?
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, yes, it will. We keep in touch with Elder Agnes Duke out there, and last year they had a cultural event out at Bond Lake, and where they made the moose hides and that, and we provided them with the moose hide after that as well. So members of the community, they tanned the hide, and they made moccasins and mitts with it. So yes, we will continue to do so.
That's great, Dennis. You know, because they are quite isolated, and I appreciate that IRR works with that community for some programming for the elders. Thank you.
Councillor Cardinal?
Thanks, Mayor. Through the chair to Dennis. It doesn't specifically say any amounts of monies for the TRC. Is it implemented in this budget?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, on one of the line items, there's $1,000 in there, and that's to do some red dress postcards for the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered. That's all the funding we've put in for that, and maybe just a little background on that is May 5th, 2021. Marked a critically important day commemoration in the region and across the country. And some of the things we did during that time is that the red is the official color of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and People campaign, and is significant within Indigenous belief systems as the only color ancestors and spirits can see in remembrance, hope, and honor. And the RFWB lit the Salem Creek Bridge in Waterways on the evening of May 5th. And later on that day, a citizen placed a red dress on a tree in front of the RMWB building, and a red dress was cut out, created by the Athabasca Tribal Council, and that was published in the McMurray today. So that's some of the significance of the red dress when it comes to the National Day of Awareness for Indigenous and Missing Women. But maybe farther to your question, if you're talking about TRC, any funding for TRC, no, we don't have any funding for the TRC.
Okay, because I like $1,000. I mean, the beadwork that's on each and every council member, that's $1,000 right there. I mean, then we got absolutely no money to move forward with TRC or any other programming for reconciliation. So I want to recommend that we, I make a motion to recommend a motion be made to not only support missing and murdered Indigenous women for the allocated motion that I'm going to be making here soon, but also I believe that there should be another motion be made to find out the actualities of what's going on with the TRC reporting and travel to archives in Edmonton and Yellowknife and those kind of areas, and support our Indigenous communities when it comes to the Truth and Reconciliation as well as the residential school ground penetrating radar stuff. I mean, I understand that there's going to be some sort of funding that might be coming to the chiefs and the presidents, but that still doesn't solidify our support when it comes to TRC. I just figured that we need to have another look at this, because if there's not going to be no funding for Truth and Reconciliation, we need to what are we doing to reconcile? So I think that we need to make those commitments ourselves, us as the mayor and council.
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, just going through some of my documents here, and I stand corrected that there is some funding with another cost center. So I have my manager, Janine Cruz, who's worked on this extensively and can shed some more light on this.
Please.
Good afternoon. Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, thanks for the question. So we do have funds within our operating budget that are dedicated to Truth and Reconciliation. We actually have a whole cost center that's dedicated to that. We also have 2 advisors that have been hired specifically to advance reconciliation. So those 2 positions are now fully staffed, and they're working to advance the 29 calls to action. In addition, we're working with supply chain management to advance economic reconciliation as well. So further to the TRC report that was passed last year, we'll also be coming forward annually with an update on our progress regarding the municipal response to Truth and Reconciliation, as well as a 4-year report to align with the council term to ensure that we continually advance our municipal responsibility to respond to the calls to action. So while I can't give you a specific dollar amount that's within the budget, I hope you can feel rest assured that it is a priority of Indigenous and rural relations to continually advance that priority.
Okay, so it's another question. I guess it's fair to say that the actual budget that's for the IIR is not it's not what is the word I'm looking for? Not set in stone then, right?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, so this is our proposed operating budget. This is what we've put forward as the dollar amount to be able to advance the priorities of our department, one being Truth and Reconciliation. So I hope that answers your question. We feel like with the funds that we have in this budget that we will be able to continue to implement reconciliation with Buffalo.
Okay, I disagree with you on that one. I think that there needs to be more funding available for the TRC and the missing and murdered Indigenous women, and that drive to support that through reconciliation. So I'll wait for Mr. Mayor to let me do my motion, and then we'll go from there, I guess.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Walkman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dennis, in your presentation, you stated that you're going to different rural communities. The rural community of Fort McKay, is there a reason why there's a lack of presence there with staff? Is it because of COVID, or is there other jurisdiction that you just can't make it out there?
Through the chair to Councillor Walkman, yes, the last 2 years with COVID, we've been working from home most of the time. So once when the COVID situation clears up, that's our mandate. We get out there in the communities. That's what we do best, having that face-to-face, having the meetings, that type of thing. So hopefully that'll be coming up in the not-too-distant future where we can get out there.
Okay, another question is virtual an option?
So Chair to Councillor Walkwin, yes it is.
Okay, maybe that's something that we can set up.
Through the chair to Councillor Walkwin, are you referring to the Fort McKay First Nations or the Métis Association?
No, the Métis, whether it's the members or the leadership or just in general, there is a lack of presence that has shown. We haven't had any staff or anybody out there to either consult or, just come and meet with the members or with leadership.
Through the chair to Councillor Walkwin, yeah, there hasn't been any personal contact, like I said, because of COVID, but there's been a lot of scheduled virtual meetings.
Okay, thank you.
And they will continue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from council? I don't see any, so Councillor Cardinal, if you'd like to go ahead with your motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to council, I'd like to move that 150,000 be added to the 2022 Indigenous and Rural Relations Department operating budget to support the National Inquiry for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women calls to action to create, deliver, and disseminate prevention programs, education, and awareness campaigns designed for Indigenous communities and families related to violence prevention and combating lateral violence.
Have anyone second that motion? Councillor Walkwin?
I second that motion.
So do you have any questions, or if you actually would like to speak to that motion, Councillor Cardinal?
I just wanted to, say that too many of our Indigenous women and two-spirited people have gone missing and are still not able to be found. And we just had another recent one, so and still a lot of missing people going missing. So I'd just like to, engage the Indigenous and Rural Relations Department to support with the billboards, engage with RCMP, engage with the communities, and just do whatever it is that could be done to support the missing and murdered Indigenous women, and just let the communities know that the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo is there for them, and we will do whatever it takes and whatever we can to make sure that they are not forgotten.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Ball? Sorry, Councillor Gradison.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, to the motion. I struggle with this one a bit because I know obviously the reality and how horrendous it is. I can't get in my head around what it is there's two things, Councillor Cardinal, that I honestly don't understand. There is all kinds of humans missing through that who have run into the same challenges. Do we just simply identify one group? Is that responsible to all of us? Because it's not just Indigenous and two-spirited people that are Indigenous. There's other women and two-spirited people that aren't Indigenous as well. Do we just forget that group and just simply focus on one group? Is that a responsible thing for government to do? I'm just struggling with this a little bit, and I mean, with the exception, I certainly support the movement, Councillor Cardinal, without any question. Just so you know that my background was working with children in high-risk situations for a big part of my life. I very much support that. I'm just not quite sure how this fits within what we as a municipality are expected to do. So if you could clear that up, and perhaps CEO Doyle could chime in on this to help educate me as well, please.
Okay, I just I got no issue with you know, making a movement for other nationalities, but I just that the government has come up with the 94 calls to action that states there that, you know, the Indigenous people were you know, tormented in the past, and this has to do with something like that, and it still continues to this day. And I understand that it happens with each and every other race. Just that government has implied and imposed amongst you know, the communities and everyone in Canada to follow the 94 calls to action, and I just believe that this would fall under that persona, I guess, or that subject. You know, so I just think that, you know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, I like we as a municipality and mayor and council will do it for everybody. I mean, but I'm specifically going after this because of the 94 calls to action and what was done to my people.
And you know, quite frankly, Councillor Cardinal, the history and residential schools with by no means appalling would be the easiest word that I could find, without any question whatsoever. And I'm very, very familiar with that. And I'm going to plead ignorance because I've read, but I can't get my head around within the calls to action that this would support. I haven't figured that out in my own mind, so I'm just at the moment challenged with understanding that and how to be strategic and respectful and meaningful to all parties concerned. I'm just struggling to figure that out because I absolutely want to be all of those things. I just don't know how to be right now. Does that make sense to you, sir?
Yes, it does. I understand your concern as well. I mean, the movement of the missing Indigenous and murdered woman is because it's the majority of the people that are actually going missing, and I believe that's probably where that this stemmed from. And with the notations that Mr. Mayor had said earlier, with the movement and the initiatives of missing murdered Indigenous women, but like I got no issue with supporting us making a different budget for any other race, and you know, not specifically for our people, the Indigenous people. I mean, I got no issue with that as well. So I just wanted to make a bigger awareness for, you know, it not to happen anymore. You know, billboards, programming, sense of, you know, belonging, all that kind of stuff.
And you know what, Council Cardinal, I think if we talked earlier about having signs that were being underutilized, I believe, right? And certainly that could do. Would it make more sense, and again, I'm counting on my colleagues and yourself, I have no problem with doing this. I just think rather than create a budget with no plan, that it would make more sense to create a plan and then amend the budget. That just makes more sense to me. CEO, could you chime in on your thoughts with that regard?
Can I get go ahead, Jamie.
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison and remainder of council, as well as the mayor, I think the motion speaks to a certain, I guess, identified request. I think if we were to broaden that, we would certainly need to recess and look into that. However, I think Councillor Grandison's idea of a plan is certainly helpful. Perhaps a staff member to look into a plan outside of this one motion to understand how we can capture everyone. But aside from that, I'd wait for the remainder of councillors and the mayor to chime in as well.
Can sorry, Jane, can I get Janine to maybe chime in on this, if that's okay?
Yes, thanks. Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal. So while just thinking about the comment that was made by Councillor Grandison, statistically, Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit people are statistically more likely to go missing and murdered, and are actually part of the actually it's a much higher rate for them than the non-Indigenous population. And so there, in addition to the 94 calls to action within the TRC report, there's actually the Missing Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls report, which outlines 231 calls to action. So while I implied that we have the funding to be able to advance the TRC 94 calls to action, there's actually a whole 231 that are identified for all levels of government to advance in a response to missing murdered Indigenous women and girls. And that calls for, the systematic looking at ways to eliminate racism and specific calls in that area. So I can appreciate the question, but one of the calls specifically states to call upon all governments to educate their citizens about and to confront and eliminate racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia. And that includes mostly Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. So that's all I can add. So.
Thank you.
Councillor Ball?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Kendrick. I support the idea of this motion, absolutely. I'm just having a little trouble getting my head around the funding side of it. Is the intent, maybe you can explain it a little bit more, because I kind of missed it. What's the intention of the use of the funds? Are we looking at grants to individuals, or is it for programming, or what's the plan?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute there. Just for engagements, awareness, creating awareness, billboards, delivery and prevention programs, all that kind of stuff. I think that those would be a crucial addition to the campaign.
Okay, yeah, that helps a lot. And I kind of agree with Al that maybe putting together a plan and getting an idea of what potentially some of these costs might be, and then develop a budget from there. I'm not sure.
Does that answer your question, Ken?
Yeah, I don't know. Could you hear me? Oh. I know I'm live, but I don't know if you can hear me or not. Can you hear me, Kendrick?
Kendrick, can you hear Councillor Ball?
Barely. There's been trouble. I can't barely hear the people that are in.
I think you got a
chambers.
You must have a pretty good lag there. Basically, I agree with what Al had said earlier. I think we need to potentially develop a plan of what we want to do, and then attach a budget to it, versus attach a budget to it and then develop the plan. Who knows? The number could go higher for all I know, based on whatever the plan is.
Sure, I believe that. Okay, Jane, you've been waiting a bit, so I'll let you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. There is a high rate of missing and murdered Indigenous women in our own region. I struggle with the fact that we're unable to solve these murders. Possibly this funding can help out in the long run. I can see where Kendrick is coming from, advertising more, getting it out on the billboards. I'm not sure if we need such a great plan for $150,000. Possibly an attachment to the funding would be a plan to come back to council and what they would decide to move forward on it. And I can see it being approached in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Dogar?
Yes, sir, through the chair. Thank you very much, counselor, my colleague, my brother. I appreciate your running around for your community from day one. Very energetic. About this motion, the way you started, that indigenous people being, what all you said, are taken away. That give me an impression that there is a campaign against the indigenous people. Like in Manitoba, Regina, there was a rift between locals and non-locals, which I believed. And actually, it is the both sides, as said by Alan, but geographical location. These people are in the rural area, and whenever there's any drunk people in the town, I, as a taxi driver, I could feel it. After a few hundred yards, he would find some place where, he would get some respite or something for some relief. As a taxi driver may get hold of them. But in your rural areas, it is a long distance. Some people drunk and, maybe it is a criminal case also, fighting, beating somebody. He is unconscious. People can't relieve them immediately. So, first of all, we should be out of this thinking that there is a campaign. There's no campaign. We all are brothers, and I respect. I, as a cab driver, whenever I went to north and south, on one side I'm vacant, I used to give free rides on both sides. So I love you people. This impression should be removed. Secondly, as question asked, in which form it would be? Would it be in a cash form? Already, I think federal and province people are doing it. Something is always done. At national level, I've heard the leaders giving some statements about it. So please consider it in view of what all I said in my broken sentences. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dogar. Councillor McGrath.
Good do.
Thank you. Through the chair, I appreciate your patience, Mayor. I know that myself sometimes I forget you're chairing the meeting. So through the chair, I certainly support your I guess your motion, and I know that we offload some responsibilities, but there are more that we could be doing. So I support you, Kendrick, and I know you don't have a blueprint today, and where 150 could be spent. But my question to Dennis and your group, when this is passed today, I don't think it'd cost a whole lot, but if we could get, I guess, through the comms group that we have in house, just a simple run through, maybe the best way to understand all of this and our connection and our responsibilities to it. I think would, a virtual tour through the museum in Winnipeg. It takes you through the walk of life and where we are, and the original suitcase and the red dress. I think it'd be good for not just our elected officials, but anybody that's lived in this region. We have a vast population, and certainly this. I know, Kendrick, you can't separate your heart. I think in the last 2 weeks, we found one lady who's gone and another one gone missing. So today we debate 150K for increased awareness within our own, and some people say it's too late. Well, some people do go away and they don't immediately be found, and years later they come up. So I support your motion, and I know you don't have all the answers today, but I'm sure with our own communications group, our own Indigenous group, we could, like I say, if we could find a few dollars just to get a virtual tour of how it all started, where we're at, I think it would help us all out. So thank you. I certainly support what you're doing.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Councillor Boussier.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bowman, and through the chair to Councillor Cardinal. I certainly support the motion, Kendrick, but I was thinking maybe led by you, council, led by you, we can develop a plan, action plan, and then I believe instead of having the money, the 150 now, we can just go to our emerging reserves and withdraw the money required from there after we develop a plan led by you, obviously, on taking this matter further. So I'm assuming Mr. Doyle can let us know about the emerging reserves options.
Thank you for the question. And through the chair, you're quite correct, Councillor Bashir. We could certainly do that, and I guess go at it that way and have a better understanding of budget. It might be less, it might be more. We don't know, but it might be beneficial for us to go through that plan, as you mentioned, and come back to council through our emerging reserve, and share our learnings and share our plan and move forward.
Because at the end of the day, Councillor Cardinal, it may end up being more than 150. So I'm hoping maybe you can lead us and we can figure this out. And then, like CAO Doyle says, we have the option of taking the funds from emerging reserves.
I guess I refer back to, I'm okay with that. I just want to maybe give it back to Janine and Dennis for a quick comment if they have anything to say on that, what we were just talking about there, if that's okay.
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, yeah, this whole realm of missing and murdered is not just something new, as we all know. There's been a lot of studies done on it. There's been a national inquiry that went right across Canada that, I think the report was 2015, and with a number of recommendations. And, all areas of Canada, including our region here, has fallen victim to this also. So this isn't just about the municipality doing something. This requires everybody. The RCMP need to be involved also. And I know that they've got a mechanism also to deal with this. And so does ATC, so does the Indigenous leadership and our elders, also provincial. So there are funding through these different levels of government. So at the end of the day, this is a multi-jurisdictional issue that we all have to, in some fashion, come together and get a handle on, and look at prevention. These things get studied to death, and at the end of the day, we still have missing women. We still have murdered women, and at some point in time, it's got to go beyond studies. It's got to go beyond awareness to the point of some root causes.
Thanks, Dennis. Anybody else?
Yes, Councillor Banjoko.
Sandy.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. And thanks for bringing up this motion. I think it has come to the point where we all have to speak up against the few. I mean, there must be some humans behind the missing and women that are being killed, especially the Indigenous women. And I think whatever we can do to stand up and do something about this, I think the world is watching, and it's about time we do something. My question to Councillor Cardinal is, I don't want to assume you didn't have any plan or any did you check, or how did you arrive at the 150,000? I just don't want us to say maybe you didn't have any plan. Perhaps you have plans, then you have some plans that you can share, that would be good. The other suggestion I had was maybe to have a contingent budget or some money put aside, but like most of my colleagues have said, we don't know exactly what the cost will be. So if you could share your ideas, I don't want to assume you have no idea other than the subject which we already know, and maybe you have something you can share on how you arrived at 150,000, just not to say you didn't have any plan. Is that fair question to you?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Thanks through the chair to Councillor Banjoko. I guess I came up with the prices like I said. The beadwork on on the council. Looking at $1,000, and you go through a billboard which is worth $5,000 to $8,000, and then of course you have the pamphlets as well as engagements for even if it's just flights to our drive to an Indigenous community. I just based it on that. I just figured like a continuous process and for it being a yearly budget. I mean, you're looking at just 25,000 to 50,000 on just billboards and awareness just for the year. So then then of course you have the prevention and then the programming and what it means to be Indigenous and all those kind of stuff and what it means to protect your kids and your missing Indigenous murdered woman, and just get that awareness out. I mean, that there itself would be another 50,000 just in programming per year. So, I mean, like I really enjoy the input from other council because of the fact that it could be more than just 150,000. And I really appreciate everybody's input, and I just base it on that stuff and just my own awareness and the things that I've been seeing going on in communities, and how the movement is. It fluctuates, it goes up and down, and then so basically I just want to I would just like for it to be just a continuous awareness, a continuous prevention, and just us support the Indigenous and missing and murdered women and do it with pride, and make it. I know that we can make it happen, and I appreciate your question, Miss Banjoko.
Thank you, sir. And I think you made a point there. We shouldn't wait for the next woman to be missing before we do something, and we shouldn't do it ad hoc, but have like a system or education awareness thing in place, and on the billboard, and who to call and what to do if you see something and things like that. So I totally, as a woman, behind you. Thank you.
Councillor Gradison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. So if we've accomplished anything, Council Cardinal, is that we've got a discussion going and everybody participating, which I think in and of itself is a success. 2 points. One, I'm very aware that the vast majority are Indigenous in terms of the women that are missing. I'm very aware of that. If I can speak to just one more moment about what I was talking about in relation to all the feedback we've got, and I think Dennis is absolutely correct. It's been studied to death. It's time for action. I just want the action to be strategic. We have Reside. We have the Multicultural Association. We have a number of organizations that are dealing with anti-racism and so on and so forth. Perhaps we can come up with a methodology of doing this in the most effective way to create an action plan that has a potential of success other than just throwing it up there. That's more what I was talking about. Let's be strategic about it and let's make it effective. And again, I'm going to reiterate Dennis's comments. It's time for action and less time for studying, so let's make our action meaningful. That's really where I was going, and that's where my questions came from.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any other questions from council? I'm not seeing any there. I'm just wondering if you want to make an amendment there with listening to all the conversation from Council Cardinal to possibly bring it to ask the CEO and him in to help us develop a plan of what we're going to go do forward, and maybe we can bring it to our strat plan and with yourself leading kind of the charge to come up with what a plan, and then put a price tag on what that plan is, so we're not putting the money first, then the plan, but put the plan in place, and then like Councillor Boussier had mentioned that it could be larger than this amount, so we're kind of going forward in a positive direction and not kind of spinning our wheels by trying to throw money at something. And I've been aware of the missing, myself personally, missing murdered Indigenous women since 2010, visiting Fort Chippewa and seeing Amber Tuckeroo's poster on the wall, and I believe her poster is still on the wall at the airport. So I've close attachment to it with her family, and I've talked to them several times over the years. And I was involved in the search with you a few weeks ago, and we lost Sherry Flett a few weeks ago. So it's something, we have over 4,000 missing emerging Indigenous women in the country. We have over 100 in Alberta, and I believe it's upward 13 to 16, including Sherry and Amber in the last 18 years in the RMWB alone. So I don't think the problem is something that needs to be studied anymore. But to put action in place, I think we need to take our time and do a proper scope of work of what it's going to cost, and then fund it after we have a plan in place. So I don't know what your thoughts are. Definitely welcome to them, but I think all council, this is one thing, as Councillor Grandison alluded to, this is something every person sitting in this room has got into this discussion, which doesn't happen very often.
I am okay with it as long as Dennis and Janine and their staff are fully involved. And I just wanted to maybe ask Dennis and them if they had somewhat of a plan in place already, and then they could share that information with us.
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, I don't believe we're starting at ground zero on this. We take a look at the information that's already out there. We take a look at what other organizations are doing something. I know that ATC have been having some discussions on this, working with the provincial government, and from a federal level, the RCMP are also invested. This certainly falls within their purview, and then there's all the other agencies within the region. And then we can expand that to the leadership, Indigenous leadership. There's going to be some support there is support there, as well as the Reconciliation Advisory Committee and elders. And, so there's a whole pool of resources and perhaps different organizations, levels of government doing things. So I think some of it is just a matter of coordinating that, having a point person and taking the larger group and looking at something a little more focused and with some action plans, some takeaways and that type of thing.
Okay, thank you, Dennis.
Councillor McGrath?
I thank you. Through the chair to Dennis. Dennis, in your operating budget, how many sessions are in there to allow for mayor and council? I know this is a comms budget, but to support, what would be your plan with your staff to accompany mayor and council this year in 22 in your budget? How many sessions are planned? And no fault to this council's, COVID is around. We accept the fact it's going to be around. There's going to be restrictions, and I know that the Indigenous communities that not just in Wood Buffalo, that I've been gracious enough to visit in the last couple of years through work for Chief Vern. Every community is self-guarded with checkpoints and COVID testing and as such. How much monies did you need to conclude or get us to virtually or personally with your staff? And how many sessions are planned this year to meet the people?
Through the chair to Councillor McGrath, on January 25th, we brought forward the Indigenous Community Capacity Grant. And that's a mechanism to get funding for Indigenous communities, all 12 of them, for capacity funding. Now, that's the first two steps. So we've crossed that. And the next is going to be going back to all of these communities and negotiating protocol agreements or relationship agreements. And so that's the next step we're going to do. And part of that is going to be defining our relationship with our Indigenous population, as well as our elected officials, that government to government, if you will. And that's one of the reasons why we spent the last year and a half going from a MICP to the protocol agreements. So once when we get that hammered out, there will be a mechanism to meet. And what that is, we don't really know yet, because we got to go back to the communities. with the agreement and get their input and see what works for them. What's the best, as well as our legal and legislative services have to be involved also. So that is the way forward.
So the intention, I guess it's not the question, but the intention, separate from my question, would be that you're going to try to negotiate 12 different agreements or IBIs, whatever you want to call them.
Sorry, Councilor McGrath, sorry to cut you off again. I'm sorry. We just want to get back to completing the motion with Councilor Cardinal, and then we can get back to ask questions of Dennis in relation to IRR, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, fair enough, sir. Fair enough. You bet.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Cardinal?
I was kind of...
Okay, thanks, Mr. McGrath. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, to the chair, to council. I guess I'm okay with amending the motion as long as we come along with in-depth discussions on steps moving forward.
Sorry, Councilor Cardinal. First, if you could withdraw the motion you made and then make the new motion, please.
Okay. Okay, I would like to withdraw my initial motion.
Thank you.
And I'd like to bring forward this motion. I motion that administration investigate how to further support the national inquiry for missing and murdered Indigenous women's calls to action to create, deliver, and disseminate prevention programs, educate awareness, and design for Indigenous communities and families related to violence prevention and combating lateral violence, and bring forward a plan and information to council, including any funding required by Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cardinal. Can I have a seconder? Councilor Walkwin?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council? No?
Okay. I got a question about a different topic.
Okay, let's finish this one first.
Okay.
Let's finish this one first. All in favor? Kendrick?
Kendrick.
In favor? Anyone opposed? I'm assuming your hand's still up for favor. So unanimously carried. Thank you. Go back to Councilor McGrath. Question for the IRR.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bowman. I didn't realize it, and you're 100% correct. So I'm glad you're in that chair to keep us all in line. It's a big job you got. My question back to Dennis would be, in your operating budget, when would be our first interface with either one of the 5 First Nations or the leadership of the 7 Métis nations? Is there a chunk of your operating budget in there to assist us with those visits, and when is the first one, whether it be virtual or in person?
Through the chair to Councillor McGrath, as far as travel, we do not have any money in our budget per se for council travel. That would come out of legislative services budget.
No, Dennis, I know that when we go, it's our budget, our communications budget, but when we go, it's your department that supports us. So I'm wondering when and where our first meeting is of 22 in your budget with which nation or which Métis nation, and when is it?
So, Chair to Councillor McGrath, we do not have a schedule yet, but when we get through budget this week, our first order of business is going to be negotiating these agreements, whether it be, if we can't travel with COVID, then we'll certainly be doing it virtual, online type of thing. So we don't have any schedule yet per se.
But the money's in the budget to hold these sessions with Mayor and Council, Chief and Council, or the presidents and their directors?
Councilor McGrath, through the chair, thanks so much, Dennis. It's Jade with Legislative Services. Happy to report that we do have budget allocations for the proposed 2022 budget for council that includes travel to all the rural communities.
I'm just, I guess I'm just in Dennis's operating budget that we're going to approve. Before I approve it, I want to know what chunk of money and when is our first meeting with these people? Last time we met, and this is not where the money at fund in his operating budget we're deliberating. I'd like to know when are we going to start our sessions and what chunk of money in that budget is geared towards it.
Through the chair to Councilor McGrath, it's Jamie. If I get your question, well, you're not referring to council meetings happening in rural communities. You're referring to when are you guys meeting leaders to leaders to have conversations. That's what I think you're getting at. Is that correct?
Well, yes, I'm kind of graced, I guess, myself because I interact with a lot of people. But this is a brand new council, and even the last council, our last meeting was in waterways at ATC, but that wasn't with the Métis. Now, because Bill Ludick presses the button and makes sure he has his meetings, what I'm saying is we're deliberating an operating budget. Mayor and council don't go to these communities without Dennis and his group. I'm just asking the question, what's the aggregate number that we're going to approve today, and when's the first meeting? Because if we're going to be out negotiating agreements, you would think that the leaders of the communities would have a bit of a touch point first.
Through the chair to Councilor McGrath, as Dennis mentioned, I don't believe those meetings are scheduled. It's certainly something we'll be working on. And as for the monies allocated to have such meetings, there's certainly funding available for that. You'll hear through Jade's presentation about mayor and council, what their budget is. And certainly if we need further monies, we can always amend our budget to add those. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Councilor Cardinal, you had another question?
I do. Thanks to the chair, to Dennis. Dennis, is there monies for programming for the, I guess, in the budget for mayor and council to attend Indigenous programming?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, there isn't any in my budget that I allot for mayor and council.
Okay.
Councilor Cardinal, I believe it's in our budget, the mayor and council's budget. It's in our budget to do that. We have a budget for that.
Okay, you answered my question. Thanks, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions from council for Dennis or Janine? Not seeing any. Thank you, Dennis and Janine, for the presentation. Much appreciated for the work you do. And right now we're going to take a 10-minute break for our councilors and we'll be back at 3:45. Thank you.